Twist villains are possibly one of the worst ways of making an antagonist. Fellas, don't you hate it when there's a very obvious twist villain in the movie that you're watching and it sort of ruins the whole thing? Puss in Boots 2 has 3 villains in it, and none of them are twist villains, which is great. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Damn, this movie is good. It's got storytelling and amazing visuals, all the characters just click. It's a brilliant movie. And what I realized while watching is that this movie creates 3 of the best types of villain a movie can make. Some movies don't do villains very well. The recent James Bond, for example, was mediocre in the villain department. Cars 2, that had a posh British car and it was a twist villain and it was not very good. Wart from Super Mario Bros., he's a frog. But this movie made up for all of them. It gave the audience 3 villains, sort of. And today I'm going to share what's so good about them. This video contains spoilers for Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish. The 3 villains I will mention are Goldilocks, the Big Bad Wolf, and Big Jack Horner. Goldilocks. We're first introduced to her when her and the 3 bears stumble across the home Puss in Boots is staying at. Goldie immediately appears to be the leader of the 4, being the brains behind their plan to make their wishes come true, which is what they're trying to find a map. And they need Puss in Boots to help get that map. As the story continues, Goldie is asked by Mama Bear what their wish would be. Goldie promises gold and riches and basically anything they could ask for, but she never says the actual wish. She keeps it to herself. Eventually Baby Bear gets suspicious and finally Goldie reveals that the wish was going to be for her to find a family. Goldie and the 3 bears sort of have a family thing going on, but Goldie has always wanted 2 human parents, a human family.
I'm getting a family! That's what, a proper family! Then everything will be just right.
Goldie is the least of the villains in this movie. She doesn't seek to kill or hurt others. She is mostly just extremely selfish for most of the movie. I would call Goldie the redeemed villain in this movie. She eventually realizes that the bears are a great family to her. She's not evil at heart and her intentions are not bad, they're just selfish. Throughout the movie they do have a good bond together, which is why I think Goldie is actually somewhat of a villain in this. Because despite how much bonding they do, she never really stops and thinks about maybe this is not a wish she wants. The Big Bad Wolf. The way they introduce him as this unbeatable, immovable threat is amazing. We first meet him in a bar. He reveals he is a bounty hunter after Puss's life. He defeats Puss and even draws blood before the cat can escape. Throughout the rest of the film, the wolf shows up and sends chills down Puss's spine to remind him of his mortality, to remind him that he's not that hero anymore. I've been lying to you all, by the way. He's not the Big Bad Wolf. He is Death. That's his name. Death finally reveals why he's chasing Puss. He's not a bounty hunter. He just doesn't like cats. That is something evil, unredeemable. How could you hate something that looks like this? Death makes the point that Puss cherished none of his previous 8 lives and decides to take his 9th and final life himself. Despite being Death incarnate, he has his reasons for wanting to kill Puss, and honestly they are very valid reasons. Puss had been mocking Death his whole life by doing daring things. He, quote,
laughs in the face of death.
So Death's journey to make Puss pay is 100% valid. It goes without saying, but Death is the most terrifying villain in this movie, maybe even in animation history. His whistle sends chills down the spine, his calm but ruthless nature. It all combines to make Death the anti-hero of this movie. He's driven solely by his own interest to take down Puss in Boots. And he looks cool while doing it. In his eyes, he's stopping an ignorant outlaw who's just been mocking him his entire life. And the final battle is brilliant. If you haven't seen the movie, I suggest you watch it. I'm not going to spoil it here because it's brilliant. And now the final villain. Big Jack Horner. And Jack Horner is perhaps one of the most fun types of characters ever. And what do I mean by that? Well, let me tell you. His introduction scene is brilliant. Jack Horner hires a pair of sisters to find the map for the Wishing Star. Already, this shows that he likes other people doing his dirty work. He doesn't like getting his hands dirty, unless he's sticking them in a pie. His castle is filled with stolen items, and he is rude and arrogant to people. Generally unlikable, but at the same time, he's got this comedic undertone to everything he does. Everything he says is so straight to the point and brutally honest. He also cracks jokes while being cruel to people. As he and his bakers travel after Puss, he puts his men at danger at nearly every turn. When he realizes they are all helpless to the Dark Forest's abilities, instead of helping, he hides and tries to find a weapon to pass the forest himself. He totally disregards any concern for his people while cracking jokes. This bug, by the way, is supposed to be his conscience. He's supposed to make Jack Horner realize what he's doing is not great, but eventually even the bug gets tired of what Jack is planning. Later in the movie, he shoots his own men multiple times without care. He sends his entire team of bakers down into an abyss, killing them, and he's like, "Ah, well, gotta keep going." He's by far the most psychotic and maniacal person in this movie. Goldilocks was selfish, but she cared about others. Death had his reasons, but eventually realized he shouldn't do what he planned. Jack Horner knows what he wants, and he knows he's bad while doing it. He is a horrible character, and that's what makes him such a great villain. He does evil things with no rhyme or reason, even if they put him at a disadvantage. For example, killing his own men. He doesn't care about the manpower at all. He does all these bad things because he knows he can do it. But his humor and line delivery is so enthralling because you know when he says he'll shoot a puppy in the face, he means it.
You're not gonna shoot a puppy, are you, Jack?
Yeah, in the face. Why?
His intentions are messed up, he does awful things, and he has a sense of humor while doing it. Being funny might make him less intimidating, but he doesn't need to be intimidating. Death is the intimidating villain. Horner having any kind of redemption isn't needed either. That's what Goldilocks is there for. All three of these villains complement each other so much because all three of them do different things and achieve so much individually, but put together, all three are very good villains. One of them is the redeemed villain, one of them is the force of nature villain, and the other is just a bad person. And those are three types of villains I think people like seeing in movies. Villains are my favourite part of a lot of movies, and I think that's why I like this one so much. And the ending of this movie is a brilliant way to send off all three villains. I think that you should watch this movie if you haven't, and I hope that these villains were as entertaining to you as they were to me.
The legend will